Relationships are extremely hard to keep going. In particular, relationships that's starting fresh. These fresh relationships will tend to struggle in the outset because the two people are learning each other. During this learning period, several mistakes can and will probably be made. How the couple handles these first steps in the relationship will highlight the longevity of what they have started. In this process, it is going to be so many opportunities to either push each other away or find something incredible along the way that will last to the distance. The Relationship Therapy Podcast will give you some things to be aware of in new relationships.
You've tuned into the Relationship Therapy Podcast with Tony Miller Sr., a podcast designed for couples who are married, couples who are dating, and have marriage in their future. We will guide you to the principles that will make your relationship better. Stick around. You might just learn something that will help your relationship last longer, grow stronger, and become healthier. Now, here's your host, Tony Miller Sr.
Hello, everybody. This is your host, Tony Miller Sr., and welcome to another episode of the Relationship Therapy Podcast. I enjoy giving these podcasts to you, and I love the feedback that we're getting from them. And I'm super excited that you're tuning in this week because I have a very special episode for you today. In this episode, I'm going to try to cover how it feels to be in a new relationship. Often in the early stages of any new relationship, there will be plenty of expectations, whether the expectations are for a blissful future or there is a heavy load of expectations that leads to a hurtful end. Couples will indeed try to move further to see what happens. They want to give it their best shot to see if the relationship can weather the storms that they are eventually going to face. But there could be some signs that they see as they're getting to know the person that leads them to believe that they may not go any further. So I'm going to share with you things to be aware of in new relationships. Let's go. So we're getting ready to talk about things to be aware of in new relationships. So let's start with this one. Be aware of your personal differences. The newer the relationship, the more real that is hidden. What I mean by that, you're trying to get to know each other and you both are putting your best foot forward. But once that line of protection is broken, and you both become real about who you really are, the quicker that the new person will find something that doesn't line up with them. When that happens, you or your new person will have to do some soul searching about what's next in line for you. You can both choose to look past the differences and continue what you've already started, or you can go ahead and start eliminating what you started just as quickly. I know you're wondering what are some of these differences that could ruin a brand new relationship even before it gets started out pretty good. One of you could be reeling from a previous relationship and have not totally healed from it. You give early signs to your mate that you're still thinking about that person, or something that you're doing with the new mate or the new mate is doing with you reminds them of that previous relationship. These are going to be detrimental toward moving forward. Relationships are already hard, and if they are stopping you by holding up the progress of the relationship because of something that happened previously, it's not going to go well. It can leave you with doubts that automatically cuts off the relationship. And here's another reason: your spiritual paths could be completely different. This will send you only on different paths later in the relationship. It could cause major adjustments and some adjustments that one of you may not want to make. It could be that one of you are accustomed to going to church and the other doesn't go to church at all. It could be that you would enjoy praying with your mate and your mate says, I don't want to pray at all. Whatever it is, those spiritual connections are needed so the relationship can move forward. The Bible says in Amos 2:2 that how can two walk together unless they agree? This is important. So beware of your personal differences before you get in too deep. You're going to thank me later. Number 2 is be aware of the jealous person. This is one that needs to be noticed sooner rather than later. There are too many variables in place if you miss this sign. It is important that you catch this sign. It could become a dangerous situation with a person who is extremely jealous. If this new person exhibits these jealousy signs, you need to move from them quick, fast, and in a hurry. The longer you remain in that relationship, the more dangerous that relationship becomes. It is often said that a person like that who's jealous can be trouble. Or as my grandmother said, a jealous person will hurt you. And I don't want you to be hurt. That is something we have to be aware of. Now, I know you're asking, but what are the signs to be aware of? Well, here's one. A person who calls you often checking up on you. But I'm not talking about checking in. Instead, I'm talking about someone who's checking up on you multiple times throughout the day to find out what you're doing, who you're doing it with, and where you are. After a while, this will become extremely uncomfortable to you. Here's another way you can see quick accusations because they saw you talking to someone else of the opposite sex. You will face a never-ending barrage of questions about what was being said, who you're saying it to, and so forth and so on. You can't afford to have that type of pressure. And that's what it is. It's pressure hovering over you. And here's a third one. They start going through your things. They go through your things to find out who you have been in contact with, what you're doing in your cell phone. They're especially talking about who you can see and who you cannot see. Everything that they do is about keeping you in check and knowing what's going on with you. This is an especially huge sign when they want something from you. In other words, they want you to share with them all about your life. But you notice that they're never sharing anything or volunteering any information about their own lives. Please be aware of the jealous person early on for the sake of your happiness. You won't regret it in the end. And here is the third thing that we need to be aware of in new relationships. Be aware of their controlling behavior. Controlling behavior can be a strong connection to our previous point where I was talking about jealousy. They typically go hand in hand. Many relationships find the exit door soon after discovering that they're connected to a controlling individual. Nobody wants to be a part of that kind of relationship. It's restrictive, and if exposed to it too long, it can do a number on your mental health. That causes you to be troubled for any future relationship opportunities that you may have along the way. You may not be able to cope because of what happened in that controlling relationship. For those of you who do not know exactly what a controlling relationship looks like or what it is, here's a definition. A controlling relationship is based on power imbalance. One of the partners essentially dominates the other person in a way that causes intimidation, insecurity, and or guilt. Once the victim is captured in it, it will cause so much drama in their lives to the pinpoint that their self-esteem is shattered. But you're asking, how are people caught up in being controlled? Well, here's one way: being constantly criticized. Have you ever been around somebody who is just constantly criticizing everything you do? The thing is, after being criticized constantly over and over and over again, it puts you in a submissive attitude so that you can help eliminate the criticism. You're going to do everything in your power to stop it from coming. Here's another way: no personal time. Your whole world revolves around the offending partner. You're not able to go anywhere alone without being asked the what, when, where, and who rapid fire questions that they're going to inevitably ask you. They don't want you to go anywhere. They don't want you making decisions on your own because then they could possibly seize control. Here's a third: you're no longer visiting your family or your friends. You don't need to get too close to your family and friends when you're in a controlling relationship. They want you to themselves. And when you do have the opportunity to meet with family or talk with friends, they're timing you and they're tracking all your moves. You have become a modern day slave to them. This is not the reason you got into the relationship. You got into the relationship looking for some love along the way, somebody that you can be with to the end. But instead, you run across a controlling individual. I say to you, end it now before you find yourself a zombie to their every move. Get back to being who you are. Find yourself, because you certainly don't need that person and their controlling behavior in your life. Here is the fourth and final highlight of the things you need to be aware of in new relationships. But before we get to that, let's backtrack a little bit. Let's talk about the first three. The first one we talked about was be aware of your personal differences, because there will be some differences. And can you live with those differences? Number two is be aware of the jealous person. If you're early in this relationship and you see that this person is extremely jealous, that might be a good sign for you to walk away from that relationship before it gets too deep. The third one is be aware of their controlling behavior. If someone is trying to control you and keep you away from family and friends, get out now. And here's number four: be aware of not being a priority to them. Let me say that again. Be aware of not being a priority to them. It's amazing to me to see people working so hard to establish something with a new person, but that person seems to forget one main thing: they don't make you a priority. I mean, it gives the new person a feeling that they will always take a back seat to something that the other person deems more important. Instead of riding shotgun to this thing called love, This is another bad sign to witness from the outset. Typically, this starts happening in the relationship once it gets older. However, it is never right for anyone in the relationship to be placed on the back burner. But there will be times as you grow together and get deeper into your relationship, there will be quick seasons or some seasons where one of the mates has to temporarily place a higher importance on something else that they have to do. This doesn't mean to totally forget about the relationship, but go ahead and finish the disruption as quick as possible so that the relationship can return to its rightful place. This is sometimes hard to do, especially when you're in the middle of raising children. But I digress. I'm talking about the early stages of a new relationship. All focus should be on each other. You should be spending time together, getting to know each other, finding out the do's and the don'ts of that individual that you're now seeing as a potential mate for the future. And I'm sure you want to know, how does this happen in relationships? How do you lose priority from your mate? One, your mate has external pressures. These are the things that could play a major impact on the relationship. These things could include their jobs, their pressures produced day in and day out, and they find themselves allowing themselves to forget to put in the work needed to enhance the foundation of this new relationship. So these external pressures really get to them. Secondly, some are not ready to put in the work. And what I mean by that, they're not ready to put in the work that it takes to foster a thriving new relationship. So the necessary energy that a new relationship needs is nowhere in sight. It hurts whatever you're trying to build with this person. And it feels like the relationship has starting off one-sided. And I'm going to say this, when it starts off that way, please don't convince yourself that it's going to change. Both of you need to be all in if you're trying to build something. And then thirdly, he or she is still in love with their former love. They're incapable of prioritizing the new relationship. They may not recognize it themselves. So it is quite difficult to articulate the new person in your life. This happens more than people realize, that they're seeking to find something new, but they're still shattered from something that has happened that's old. They just won't be honest with themselves, and they definitely can't be honest with you. In the meantime, you end up messed up over somebody that's not being honest with you. I know this hurts, but I'm sorry. This is how it happens. So please beware of not being a priority to your new boo, especially early in the relationship. Well, that's all I've got for you in this episode. I hope I've given you something that you can look forward to. I think this episode is more guided toward new relationships and not existing relationships. But I'm sure there's something inside of this episode that you can find that can help even some of those who have been in a long relationship already. So I like that you're tuning in. Continue. We've still got some surprises ahead. I've booked a couple of interviews already. So please stay with us here at the Relationship Therapy Podcast. And we're going to keep giving you stuff to keep your relationship going, lasting longer, growing stronger, and becoming healthier. As I close this episode, please remember this: it takes two to make a relationship work.
Thank you for listening to the Relationship Therapy Podcast with Tony Miller Sr. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. Tune in next time for more insight on how to make your relationship better. If you have any questions, please email us at tmrelationshiptherapy@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, remember, it takes two to make the relationship work.